Yeah, way too many. All right, let's go again. Right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Good to see you here. Filling in for Steve this morning. Yeah. Good. You look nice.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah, you look very nice, too. I would like to think you both look very nice. Ted looks great as well. But I think it's very important. Sadly, there's not much news today. So we're probably going to run a lot of yesterday's stories.
More news about the FBI. But before we get to that, let's talk about something else that's important. Straight to that Fox News alert. President Trump making good on another campaign promise.
Yep. In just a few hours, he's set to announce that the United States will officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Big move. Griff Jenkins is live in Washington, D.C. And Griff, the backlash from some and support from some has already begun.
Yeah, good morning, guys. It is already inflaming passions, and it's a move that could upend decades of U.S. diplomatic efforts to broker a peace deal. But let's set the stage. Like many presidents before him, from Clinton to Bush to Obama, we heard campaign promises like this.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
But at 1 p.m. today, President Trump will actually follow through on it, formally recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and directing the State Department to begin the multi-year process of moving the U.S. Embassy there from Tel Aviv, already in Bethlehem. Flags with President Trump's image are burning, the potential for violent protests rising, and the U.S. consulate in Jerusalem issuing a security warning on Twitter for American citizens, directing them to avoid the old city in West Bank. The move clearly angering Palestinians who want Jerusalem as their capital as well. President Mahmoud Abbas warning in this statement, quote, such a move will have detrimental consequences on the peace process and the prospects for the internationally endorsed two-state solution. Now, allies across the Muslim world are warning of serious consequences. Turkish President Erdogan threatening to break off ties with Israel.
Our struggle on this matter will continue with resolve. As a matter of fact, this can go as far as breaking off our diplomatic relations with Israel.
And as a precaution, U.S. Marine Corps anti-terror teams are deploying across the Middle East in and around U.S. embassies. And we're hearing from world leaders, guys, everywhere, from Iran to China, Syria, Lebanon, and even the Pope weighing in on things. All this ahead of Vice President's trip to Jerusalem in less than 2 weeks.
All right, so not much controversy with the decision. It's just business as usual. Thanks, Griff.
Thanks, Griff.
So they're going to move it, and it's officially not going to be moved. We have a waiver for 6 months to actually move the building, but some have said all you have to do is put a plaque on it, and essentially it's moved. It's out of there.
The declaration itself is what's so significant. You know, 70 years ago, it took President Truman to recognize the state of Israel. We were the first country to do so when it was established in May of 1948. 70 years later, I truly believe, especially amongst his supporters, this president will be remembered for taking this courageous step that previous presidents have said. The Congress passed an act in 1995. We're going to move the embassy. A lot of talk about it. No one ever actually did it. This president looks like he's going to follow through.
Griff played one of those sound bites, but look at this. We have a montage of past presidents promising the same move.
As soon as I take office, I will begin the process of moving the United States ambassador to the city of Israel as chosen as its capital.
Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain undivided.
He's saying remain the capital. You know, you can't ignore, I know this is highly sensitive for the Palestinians, but you can't ignore the fact that the legislature is there in Jerusalem. You have the prime minister lives there, as well as the Supreme Court. So it's almost already the capital. It just hasn't been declared that.
Yeah, Monday was the deadline to do it. They have a 6-month waiver to actually physically move it. Among the people that are against it, Saudi Arabia, France, Jordan have all weighed in and said, listen, don't do this. We've reassured the Palestinians it doesn't mean anything about the process. But we are not saying it should not be an undivided city. It's still going to be a divided city. We're not declaring that. We're just saying we are moving the actual embassy. Among the people in support of this is Senator Chuck Schumer. He's saying you got to be bold. Alan Dershowitz was high-fiving everyone he saw. Watch.
I think that President Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel is the perfect response to President Obama's outrageous orchestration of the Security Council resolution, which he pushed through as a lame duck that declared the Western Wall to be illegally occupied territory, the Hebrew University, the Hadassah Hospital, the Jewish Quarter, according to this resolution that was basically pushed through by Obama. These are outrageously flagrant violations of international law. The best response to that horrible resolution is for the president to say, we don't accept the UN resolution, and the best proof of it is we're going to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. You say it's occupied, we say it's the capital.
Having walked and been at the Western Wall a couple of times, to go in again in February, you understand how disputed that place is and how significant it is. But what Obama did at the end of his term with that UN resolution was a thumb in the nose to Israel and to Bibi Netanyahu. What this president has done has reaffirmed our relationship with our ally there, fellow democracy, capitalist country. They're fighting Islamists every single day. And don't underestimate how significant it is that President Trump said he was going to do it. And unlike all the politicians before him, because that montage could have had Bill Clinton in it, Bill Clinton promised to move the embassy as well. This president said, I said I would do it, and I'm doing it, which is what he said he'd be from the beginning.
Right. And the most controversial thing that Pete said, it's not thumb in the nose, I think it's thumb in the eye.
Thumb in the eye.
Right? Or finger in the eye. Right?
Thumb in your nose.
Because just thumb in your nose.
Yeah. I'm the worst at that. I'll mix it all up.
Right. It just kind of threw me. I couldn't get past.
Remember yesterday we were talking about those anti-Trump text messages that were sent from a top agent in the FBI that was investigating Hillary Clinton. He was investigating Hillary Clinton, and he sent these messages, these anti-Trump messages, to his mistress, who also works with the FBI on the Mueller team. And those emails, or those text messages, are now going to be there. They've been requested by the House Intelligence Committee to be released to them. And I think now they're going to be.
Well, it looked like the House Intel Committee would hold them in contempt to deliver it, and that threat has meant that they're going to hand it over.
So there's a few things coming up here that just will make you wonder about the agenda of, sadly, the FBI, and that's a huge risk to our country. If you can't trust law enforcement at the highest level and their approach, especially in something that means so much, and it really is the check on the President of the United States, you have to wonder where we go from here. Ari Fleischer sees a problem when the integrity is questioned, but sees the problem why we are questioning it.
America can never doubt the integrity of the FBI, but now we have legitimate reasons to do so. The fact that an FBI agent in charge, one of the people in charge of the Hillary investigation, could be so biased, could be so partisan, and he also is the one who interviewed Cheryl Mills and Huma Abedin, and they gave him information that was contradicted by their emails, and nothing happened to them. You really do have to scratch your head and wonder what's going on below the Mueller level. And it is not healthy for the country if legitimate questions are raised and are not answered. The FBI and Bob Mueller need to assure the American people that this is being done with integrity.
And there's some more questions, too. You had this guy, Andrew Weissman. Remember when Sally Yates came out and the president, one of the first things he did, he said, yeah, I'm going to get that travel ban in place. I'm concerned about these terror-laden nations who don't have really proper paperwork to come here. So he rolled out a hastily put-together document in retrospect. The third version passed the Supreme Court
I think the first version would have passed the Supreme Court, too.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, it got drawn up, and it caused great consternation, and it certainly wasn't executed correctly. There was chaos in these airports. So Sally Yates didn't want to go ahead and implement this, and when she actually lost her job because of this. Now it's discovered that Andrew Weissman, 10 days into the Trump administration, after Sally Yates refused to do this, defended who she refused to defend an executive order. Andrew Weissman praised her in an email saying this, I am so proud and in awe. Thank you so much. With all my deepest respects, Andrew Weissman.
Thank you so much to Judicial Watch, who fought to get these documents. We just now get this document. Why is this so relevant? Andrew Weissman is Bob Mueller's deputy. Mm-hmm. He's the #2 in this. Mark Levin calls it now the Special Impeachment Council. I mean, this is effectively that's what they're going after. If Bob Mueller's integrity is in question, and now his #2 is literally caught writing emails to Sally Yates because she's leading the resistance against President Trump.
Guy in the FBI who was an agent who was investigating Hillary Clinton, and he let her go scot-free and changed the language in that memo last summer, or in that press
Peter
conference.
Strzok.
Exactly. Yep. So we have someone who hated the president, was sending messages in that investigation. And then let's look at the Russia investigation. You have Andrew Weissman, who's the deputy prosecutor, who's in that investigation, and he is praising Sally Yates, who was fired by President Trump.
Yeah, and by the way, Strzok interviewed Michael Flynn. Strzok was the one who combed through the 35,000 emails that were discovered on Anthony Weiner's laptop and said, okay, there's no there. Mm-hmm. And so far you see a guy with an agenda who, as punishment, was pulled off this case and put into human resources, which is bizarre.
You hope they can be objective. You hope they can be objective, but it just looks suspicious, and it makes all of us wonder.
That's right. Everyone has a political perspective. I get that. But when it starts to inform your work at the FBI, that becomes a problem. Other note about Andrew Weissman, max-out donor to both Obama and Hillary Clinton. So, I mean, it's one thing to have a partisan view. It's another thing to act on it, and that's the fear, weaponization.
All right, let's move on to some other headlines this morning. We begin with a Fox News alert. A race against time to stop destructive wildfires that are burning out of control, sending tens of thousands of people actually fleeing their homes. Both Ventura and Los Angeles counties in Southern California under state of emergencies with multiple wildfires raging. More than 70,000 acres have been scorched since Monday night. Winds whipping flames hundreds of feet in the air, causing even more destruction. Hundreds of homes and buildings have been destroyed, including an entire apartment complex. More than 2,500 firefighters are battling the blaze. At least 3 have been injured. Critical fire conditions are expected until Friday, and we'll have a live report from the fire zone in just a few minutes. Another alert now. Overnight, a U.S. bomber flying over South Korea, the latest show of force after a powerful missile test from the north. Korean media reporting that plane is joining the current week-long military drill, the largest joint exercise ever with South Korea. In response, China has staged its own drills, saying that they are a warning to the U.S. that China will uphold the balance of power.
All right, get this. The DOJ agreeing to hand over those anti-Trump texts sent by that FBI agent, Peter Strzok, who was removed from the Mueller investigation. As new details reveal other possible conflict of interest with the probe, including Andrew Weissman, who weighs in to Sally Yates, praising her for defying the White House. So can it still be conducted fairly? And talking about an investigation, here to weigh in is Washington Times opinion editor, Fox News contributor Charlie Hurt. Charlie, these 2 revelations in particular, Weissman, who's number 2 with Mueller right now, essentially giving a email high five to Sally Yates for defying the White House, and this guy Peter Strzok is anti-Trump diatribe, and then you look at his actions. Do you have any doubt that people wonder if they have an agenda here?
No, it's absolutely incredible. And the Peter Strzok stuff, that alone, I can understand that. People have opinions, whatever. But when you fold that into the pattern of his behavior and then the larger pattern of all the behavior of everybody involved in this and all of the conflicts of interest, all the way from the lowest level to the highest levels, it really does raise serious questions about the integrity of this investigation, the purpose of this investigation, and quite frankly, as we see more and more, it becomes more and more apparent that a lot of these allegations are falling away and the smoke clears. It raises the original question, which is what actually launched this investigation in the first place? Why did the Obama administration first begin spying on Paul Manafort and the Trump organization, a political opponent in the height of a presidential campaign? It raises serious constitutional questions.
And of course, this guy in Strzok, he's the one doing the interview with Hillary Clinton on July 5th without swearing her in, with no video. He's the one going through the 35,000 emails. He's the one who's number two in this investigation going through. And then you factor in what we just learned yesterday about somebody else's agenda. And the fact is, this thing has cost $7 million already. In Benghazi, a 2-year probe overseas cost $7 million, 2 years. Unbelievable. Next, what kind of risk, if any, is the president taking now, backing Roy Moore full-throated as of yesterday? Does Conyers, does Barton, does Franken, and all their bad behavior give the president cover here?
It's almost like all these people are setting up for, the Senate's a perfect place for somebody like Roy Moore. I think it really does. I think it really does give him a lot of cover in this case.
I think it's also almost unnecessary because I think the president's taking political risk he doesn't need to. Doing the Mitch McConnell thing, let Alabama decide, probably would be the best way.
He's not afraid. He's not afraid of risk. That's for sure.
Hence the movement of the embassy in Israel. Charlie, thanks so much.
You bet, Brian.
Breaking news now: an ISIS plot to take out the British Prime Minister. Stopped just in time. Just how close did these two men get to an assassination? We'll discuss it. Plus,
and insane video showing the former president of Georgia dragged off of a rooftop by security forces in the Ukraine. He had been addressing hundreds of protesters on the street when he was arrested. Those supporters then helping him break free so he could lead a march to parliament demanding the resignation of the Ukrainian president. Prosecutors gave him 24 hours to turn himself in. Ukrainian politics, the gift keeps on giving. Ainsley, down to you.
It totally does. Thanks, Pete. Millennials are on course to be the largest group of voters in our country, and a new poll out of Harvard shows that they prefer Democrats by a 2-to-1 margin. According to a recent poll, just 33% of 18 to 29-year-olds would prefer to see Republicans control Congress after the 2018 midterm, while 65% would prefer Democrats. So what can Republicans do to attract more young people to the party? Here now to discuss is the conservative millennial Allie Beth Stuckey. Allie Beth, great to see you. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Great to see you too.
Thank you. So what do you think Republicans can do to win these millennials over?
Yeah, well, this is not really that unique of a problem. Young people in general and millennials in particular tend to lean liberally, especially as of late. I mean, we saw in 2016 that more millennials voted for Bernie Sanders in the primaries than voted for Trump and Clinton combined. A poll earlier this year showed that 2/3 of millennials are okay with socialism, and another poll actually showed that if given the choice, millennials would vote for a socialist rather than an evangelical Christian. So there are lots of reasons why millennials are going so far left, from indoctrination on college campuses to what they're seeing out of Hollywood and the celebrity influencers that lean left. But really, the biggest asset that Democrats have that Republicans just haven't seemed to master yet is branding. Bernie Sanders and Democrats have done a very effective job of branding liberalism and socialism as the more compassionate and the more morally right option. And those are two things that millennials care about being very much.
Why has it become so outrageous? On these college campuses, you can't even have conservatives come and speak. You can't make it public because then there's a protest and then they're not allowed to come and speak. It seems to be so outrageous. Why is it that the left, they're so focused on their agenda instead of being tolerant that they preach?
Right, absolutely. Well, if you look at the political dialogue right now and the words that really characterize our conversations about politics and culture, inclusion, tolerance, love, hate, bigotry, racism, all of these not only have a moral connotation, but they're also almost completely monopolized by the left. So anything that exists outside of leftist definition of what these things are, just according to the left, doesn't really actually exist. And millennials who care about being compassionate, who care about being empathetic, are being sold this lie that liberalism and free healthcare and free college is the only humane and moral option. And for Republicans and conservatives to have any kind of fighting chance, we have to be able to explain why Republican and conservative policies are actually the more conservative choice, why capitalism compassionate choice, that we actually are promoting more tolerance through free speech instead of censorship. We are actually promoting more compassion through capitalism rather than socialism. It's actually more loving to fight for the unborn rather than to fight for abortion. And until we can master that language and master that branding, conservatives are going to have a very hard time catching up.
Allie Beth Stuckey, thank you so much for your opinions. Great to see you. Thank you. All right, we have a Fox News alert. A state of emergency in California as wildfires are raging out of control.
All right, we're back with the Fox News alert now. Multiple wildfires tearing through California, leaving a path of destruction and showing no signs of slowing down.
Tens of thousands of people leaving their houses in a desperate race against time.
Our own Jonathan Hunt joins us live from Ventura, California, with the latest. Jonathan, good morning.
Pete, Ainsley, Brian, good morning to all of you. It is a long, hard fight still ahead for firefighters and tragic scenes for many of those who have been evacuated to come back to. For instance, right here, this brick facade, all that is left of this home in the city of Ventura, and this scene being repeated literally hundreds of times in this city. These people will come back just a couple of weeks before Christmas to utter devastation, the loss of the home they treasured, the loss of many of the possessions they treasured. And the fires came through this area so quickly that so many of these families were forced to evacuate without having any time at all to grab anything. These winds have been whipped. These fires have been whipped by what are called Santa Ana winds. Those are the warm winds that blow through Southern California at this time of year. Much worse this year, though, because we haven't had any rain to dampen the vegetation over the last couple of months. So it's bone dry conditions, almost impossible for firefighters to get ahead of the fire line. And right now here in Ventura, we actually have zero containment. And it's across Southern California. NASA has put out some fascinating pictures of the smoke clouds from space. And you can see just how big and how widespread they are. One of the other fires that is particularly bad is in Silmar. That is north of Los Angeles, an area where there are a lot of ranches, a lot of people who keep animals. And we have seen some heartbreaking video of people trying desperately to get their horses, llamas, other livestock out of the area. The sad news from an area called Sunland, which is near Silmar, is that several horses were killed. The good news, if there is any, is that there are no fatalities as yet directly caused by these fires. The other bit of good news, though Santa Ana winds have died down a little bit, they believe they can get aircraft up to dampen the fires earlier today, but then the winds are going to come back. A long, hard fight ahead. Back to you guys.
Jonathan Hunt, thanks so much.
Thank you, Jonathan. All right, turning now to some headlines, starting with a Fox News alert. An assassination plot against a major world leader is foiled. British authorities arresting 2 men accused of planning a radical Islamic terror attack targeting Prime Minister Theresa May. Police believe that they planned to bomb the security gate outside of her office and then attack her with a knife. 9 attacks have been reportedly thwarted in the UK this year. The suspects are due in court today. Country over party. That's the message from Republican Senator Jeff Flake, who just donated, look at that, a $100 check to the Democratic Alabama Senate candidate, Doug Jones. Flake posting this picture to his Twitter account. The move coming after President Trump endorsed Republican Roy Moore, despite his allegations of sexual harassment.
I do think the president is wrong here, and I think it will have, negative impacts for the party in the long term.
Voters in Alabama head to the polls next Tuesday. Outrage.
All right, 24 minutes before the top of the hour. This year, Americans are expected to spend over $600 billion on holiday shopping.
So with the season of giving in full swing, many of you are sending in questions about how to make the most of your hard-earned dollars.
Here to answer some of our questions is the author of Retire Inspired, Ramsey Solutions financial expert, Chris Hogan. Hey, Chris, great to see you.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you all.
Well, good. We love that voice. Okay, Brian emailed us. Oh, no, Daniel emailed us. This is a Brian Reed.
Yeah,
Brian,
so let me I'll use my voice. You know what, Ainsley, by the power vested in me, go ahead.
Okay, Brian, Daniel says, I want to surprise my wife with a Christmas gift, but she reviews our online account several times a week. How can I get her a gift while staying open and honest about our finances?
Well, Daniel, what you want is the gift can be a surprise, but how much you spend on the gift shouldn't be. So I would encourage you all to sit down and talk about how much you're going to spend on gifts and for each other, as well as other people in the family. Gain agreement on a dollar amount. And guess what? You could buy that gift utilizing cash or gift cards, and the gift still would be a surprise to your wife, and you all will stay on budget for this holidays.
Right. But also make sure you get a receipt to make sure you're getting full value of what was promised pre-Christmas Day, because you don't want to get ripped off.
But how smart is that? You take the cash, Chris, that's great. You take the cash, you go to CVS, you buy a gift card, and then you buy it online. She'll never know.
Well, now you've just given up the whole idea. Meanwhile, this email comes from Lily. It says, my husband and I have 2 kids who are 6 and 8. They'd like to buy gifts for their friends. Should we have them spend their own money on these gifts?
Well, Lily, here's the deal. I think you've got a great opportunity to teach your kids a lesson about money, the importance of saving, spending, as well as giving. Now, if the kids, you want to talk with them and find out who do they want to buy for and how much are they thinking about spending. Kids don't really understand money, so this is where, as parents, you can start to talk with them and gain understanding. Now, there is nothing wrong with you helping them if they have 2 to 3 friends they want to buy for, and it's a reasonable amount that you can afford. But I think it would be a fantastic lesson if the kids were able to use their own money to walk in a store, pick out a gift for someone, and know that it's something that they did on their own along with your help. So either way, it's a win-win, but make sure you're talking to the kids about the importance of understanding what we're spending and why we spend money and why we save.
Or just tell them to make something for the kid, right? Make a spider or something. I mean,
make a spider. Depends on the age. If they're like 15, they don't want a paper spider.
Get them Play-Doh.
You could go to those stores that they have at schools where everyone gets a magnet of the world's greatest mom.
Yeah.
World's greatest dad.
I'm sorry. Let's continue.
Well, you all are right. And here's the thing. We can't get caught up in the amount we're spending on the gift. Let's remember the reason for the season. It's a chance to appreciate people and not get caught up in the dollar amount or the size of the gift.
Good point. We've got an email here from Sam, one of our viewers. He said, I've read that I can open a Roth IRA for my spouse who isn't employed. Can I max out her account at $5,500 and still contribute the full amount to mine?
Sam, yes, you can. As a matter of fact, not only can you do it for your wife, but you can do it for yourself. And if you start to think about this, you can have $11,000 that's after-tax money growing for you tax-free. Let's not forget, the Roth IRA means tax-free growth. You've already paid taxes on the money, and so now you have an opportunity to get that money working for you. And remember, the best way to grow money is to allow time and compound interest to work on your money.
Huh. Is that different than what you can gift someone? Can't you gift someone up to $14,000 without having to pay taxes?
You can do some gifting. I'd encourage someone to sit down and talk to their tax professional so you can understand how we're going about it. And this time of year, at the end of the year, is the perfect way to really get on the same page, wrap up end of year giving, know what you're going to do, but also set a plan for 2018.
Right. All right. Chris Hogan, great job.
Chris.
I appreciate it.
Thank you all for having me.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, President Trump ready to follow through on his campaign promise. Listen.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
What message does this send to the world? Because it turns out he's doing it today. And glad you're up. Hope you're dressed. Now some headlines. UPS warning customers they're a bit behind on deliveries. No really consequence. The company saying that a small percentage of their packages are being delivered 1 to 2 days late as they work to clear up a Cyber Week backlog. Deliveries should be back on track by the end of today. As I take a few steps, let me talk about another story. The Cheesecake Factory is delivering free cheesecake to your door. That's a slice. The chain will be giving out 10,000 free slices with any orders placed through DoorDash. You don't even need to purchase anything. Just simply type the promo code 10,000 slices when you place your order. And finally, more food talk. Pizza Hut is on its way to becoming a one-stop shopping for food and alcohol. So you order the pizza, you could also have the wine it will deliver. I want those aren't anchors clapping because that would be unsavory and unwise. Customers in the thousands are going to flock to this order. Right now, the company is just delivering booze to Phoenix, and we'll see how that goes, and we'll see how the Suns play, and then we'll begin the whole country in January. Pete.
Huge Pizza Hut fan. All right, today, President Trump is expected to follow up on this campaign promise.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
The announcement likely to also include the recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. So what does this send to the world as a message? Here to weigh in is Fox News foreign policy analyst Kyron Skinner. Kyron, thanks for being here this morning. Really appreciate it. Former presidents, including George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, have all promised this, but they did not follow through. Why is this president following through?
I actually think because during the presidential campaign, Donald Trump was doing something that's actually unusual for a presidential candidate. He was beginning to work out an alternative theory of the international system, which included principled realism, as he calls it, as a pillar of America First. And this is an application of principled realism. It is a geopolitical reality that the administrative home of Israel is in Jerusalem and has been since the beginning of the Jewish state. It is a geopolitical reality that the sovereignty and juridical issues surrounding the long-term status of Jerusalem will have to be worked out between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And it's a geopolitical reality that nation states are able to negotiate best with each other when they move first from a position of their own national interest. And all of these factors have influenced Donald Trump, and he worked it through the interagency in the United States, and there was broad consensus across state, defense, and the White House, along with the National Security Council, that this was the time to make the move.
Kyron, now his critics will say he's stoking religious tensions. He's setting back the peace process. He's any number of criticisms of this move. What is the real intention here as it pertains to our relationship with our allies in Israel?
Well, to speak to that point, just give me a second here. It's I think, disingenuous to say that it's going to make matters worse and increase instability in the broader Middle East. The Middle East peace talks have been moribund for many, many years, fits and starts with no major conclusion. So I think that this act, in fact, may provide an assist to the negotiating parties because it shows that the United States has resolve. It's a very directed and narrow and specific act that the United States is taking. The president is not trying to resolve sovereignty issues. So I think in the long run, it will actually help jumpstart the Middle East peace process because the United States is the only outside power that has been the main facilitator of the peace process, and it will be needed in the next round of those negotiations.
Kyron, briefly, we've seen leaders of some Arab nations, Erdogan, who's himself increasingly Islamist, but also Saudi Arabia. They don't like this move, but you say in some ways publicly their rhetoric is going to be stronger than how they really feel behind the scenes.
I think there's some of that. There's always posturing, and we see that from the European allies, and we see that in the Middle East as well. But the president has really vetted this decision. He's been talking to the leaders in the Arab world and other Muslim nations, and he's been talking about why he's doing this,